Hello everyone, I'm Dawn. Welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for visiting with me today. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to my channel, The Cutting Board. We do all kinds of content here. We do true crime, we do commentary, we do chit chats, we do vlogs, discussions, we do makeup, SFX makeup, DIY, food content, and Disney content. So if any of that is of interest to you, join me. We have a good time here for the most part. Now I think this is going to be a pretty long video, so bear with me. But before I get started, I want to say that this video is not intended to harass or bully anybody. I have observed this individual's behavior for a long time. I spoke up against her long before most people did. And quite frankly, I got beat up for it. I got dumped all over for that. Well, no, people attempted to beat me up, but you know, Goonies never die. So yeah. And I knew I was right from the beginning. I knew I was right about this person. I knew it. And so this video is about April Johns, also known as Fancy Macelli, but as I've said before, I'm not going to feed that delusion. I'm calling her April. There were people speaking out against this person even before Gypsy Rose's release, her prison release. But when I made my first video about the situation, although it was met with a lot of support, it was also met with some pretty childish, hateful remarks, just animalistic behavior from people who just simply didn't know any better. And I don't know if they know better today, but whatever. At one point, people even started spreading that I had a criminal record. They went on Sir Morbid. They went on a few other sites and said that I had a criminal record. Someone, and I strongly suspect it was an April Johns sock account or one of her weird stands, created a whole YouTube channel claiming to expose my so-called criminal behavior. They posted a document that was supposed to prove it. Yeah. And if I can find that document, I'll post it right here. But yeah, it's completely wrong. And the problem with the document is it's completely ridiculous. First of all, it isn't even my legal name. So that's a thing. The date of birth is completely wrong. And it claims the alleged crime took place in Florida at a time when I didn't even live in Florida. Now, I guess when someone has such a small world and someone hasn't really been anywhere in their life, it's easy for them to assume that everyone else has been stagnant in their own world as well. Not my case. Now, when I made my first video about this person, I didn't even name her. I didn't even name her directly. I mean, obviously it was her I was talking about, but I never said her name. I simply pointed out that a certain content creator was distributing Gypsy Rose's medical records. And even though people didn't like hearing that, doing so was unethical and illegal. And that still stands. That remains true despite the fact that a lot of people online, many of whom have, never worked for even one moment in the medical privacy sector, they all of a sudden know more than me. They told me I was wrong with their chest, with confidence. It is illegal to profit from someone's medical records. It is absolutely illegal to do that. It does not matter if the records were handed to someone personally, okay? It does not matter who gave them to you. Even if God herself handed those records directly to April Johns, that does not give someone the right to publish those records or monetize them in any way. And she did that and continues to do it. April Johns has published Gypsy Rose's medical records in one of her books that is currently available on Amazon. Actual medical records. She also at one point had portions of those records available behind a paywall. Both of those things raise very, very serious legal and ethical concerns. At least for me they do, and they should for you. And at this point, I want to explain why, because there seems to be a lot of confusion online about how medical privacy actually works. So I worked in healthcare compliance and medical records, release of information, HIPAA, for years. I'm not speaking about this as a random person on the internet. Okay, I'm speaking from professional experience. A lot of people seem to think that once someone obtains medical records legally from a hospital, they can do whatever they want with them. And that's just not true. That's not how it works, like at all. So HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, is the federal law that protects medical privacy. That applies to healthcare providers, hospitals, doctors' offices, insurance companies, and businesses that handle medical information on their behalf. Okay, those entities cannot release protected health information without proper authorization. And I think we all know that, okay? We all know that. But even when medical records leave a hospital, once they're released legally, for example, when a patient requests their own records and they get a copy of those records do not suddenly become public property. That's not how it works. Medical records contain extremely sensitive and confidential information, diagnoses, medications, treatment notes, psychological evaluations, and other deeply personal information. Publishing that information publicly, especially in a way that a person profits from someone's private medical history, raises very serious ethical issues and can also fall into complicated areas of privacy law, dependent on how those records were obtained and how they're being used now. So there is also a very big difference between discussing a public case and publishing someone's actual medical records. There is a difference. Journalists can report on claims made in court. People can discuss medical issues that were mentioned in testimony. But reproducing the records, publishing the records, copying the records, distributing them, selling them, or putting them behind a paywall or publishing them on the internet for just views is a completely different situation. Views may not be monetary, but they count as something of value. And that's the issue I raised from the very beginning when I got shit all over. When I pointed that out, instead of addressing the concern, some people tried to discredit me. personally. But the point was never about me. It wasn't about me. The point was simple. Someone's private medical records were being turned into content for monetary or some other type of gain. And that's something I'm never going to pretend is normal, acceptable, or right. I don't care. I don't care if it's Gypsy Rose's medical records. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I don't subscribe to the idea that it's okay because everyone hates her. That's not how rights work. Is that how you want your rights to work? That's not how rights work. Whether people like Gypsy Rose or not is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. She still has rights, whether you like it or not. And those rights have been violated by April Johns. And this goes directly to credibility. It does. April Johns is unethical. And I don't want to hear the argument that, but she exposed Gypsy Rose. She exposed her. So what? So what? Into the Weeds and Barb from Straight Out of Context and Becca Scoops have done more with their platforms in the movement against Gypsy Rose than April Johns has, more than she has ever done. And without violating privacy laws. They've researched the case, they've analyzed the narrative, they've contributed to the community, to the discussion. They've gone through the FOIAs better than any attorney would, and they managed to do that without publishing someone's private medical records. Got to get comfortable, I'm sorry. But that's not the only difference. But it is a very, very clear one. You have ethical, respectable content creators, and then you have April Johns. Publishing and profiting from someone's private medical records isn't just unethical, it's criminal. It is criminal behavior. It absolutely is. At the very least, at a civil level. And I still think, as much as I dislike Gypsy Rose, I still think she should sue that woman. And let's talk about that lawsuit for a minute. She had a lawsuit against her by Gypsy Rose. So Gypsy Rose filed a lawsuit against her for in Chillicothe. April grifted her audience out of money by convincing them that the case was about her First Amendment rights. False claim. It absolutely was not about that, and she knew it. She knew it and still told her audience that's what it was about. The First Amendment, adopted in 1791 as part of the Bill of Rights, guarantees certain fundamental freedoms. Religion, speech, press, assembly, and the right to petition the government. That's what the First Amendment protects. Okay? But that's not what this lawsuit was about. It never was. She wanted her followers to believe that's what it was about, but that's not what it was about. This case had nothing to do with her freedom of religion. It had nothing to do with her freedom of speech. It had nothing to do with the freedom of the press. And let's say it did have something to do with her freedom of speech. Okay, let's say it did have something to do with her freedom of speech, which it absolutely didn't. That amendment protects your freedom to say what you want to say. It doesn't protect you from consequences. But this wasn't about her freedom of speech. I just wanted to say that. It didn't have anything to do with the freedom of the press, assembly, or petition. None of those things applied to the situation. Not at all. Now, let's take a look at the causes of action in that lawsuit. That'll be fun, right? The causes of action listed were fraud, breach of contract, unjust enrichment, defamation, and false light. Whether we agree with any of those or not, that's what the lawsuit was about. And if anyone wants to look at the case themselves, you can go to www.courts.mo.gov and pull it up and review all of the documents. That's a great website. You can also view the documents about her charges for filing a false police report, which we're going to get into. Now, I'm not going to go through the entire case here, but I do want to go over the section that outlines the causes of action. Just a little bit, not a whole lot. Section 52 states that the defendant retained documents, videos, photos, and audio related to the plaintiff that she received in connection with her contractual relationship with Gypsy as a producer. This included, but was not limited to, police reports, crime scene photos, police video, surveillance videos, court transcripts, and medical records related to Gypsy Rose Blanchard. And right now, I want to say something. She said, when the relationship ended, she said, Fancy, April, said it ended because at that point, she had not seen the interrogation video, but she got all of this and she didn't get the interrogation video. I find that very interesting. But anyway, we'll move on. After failing to fulfill the objectives of the contractual agreement and being dismissed by the plaintiffs, by the Blanchard family, the defendant, April, allegedly used these materials, especially Gypsy's private, protected medical documents, she did, to produce public content. And she absolutely did that. According to the filing, she also made false and inflammatory statements about the plaintiffs to like several magazines, accused them of criminal behavior without a reasonable factual basis, and did so for her own personal financial gain. Now, I want to make something pretty clear here. Despite what some people on social media like to claim, on YouTube, on TikTok, wherever, not everyone discussing the Gypsy Rose case falls into this same category or these categories. There are creators who have presented actual documentation and relevant receipts when making claims, about the case. They've done that. They've produced those receipts. April Johns, on the other hand, has gone on repeated, heated threads and rants where she expresses these so-called facts, about Gypsy Rose, about the case. And the reason I say so-called is because many of her assertions come from a place of rage, imbalance, not from a place of careful analysis or evidence. Now, Section 53 under causes of action states that the defendant, April, threatened the plaintiff Gypsy's freedom by alleging that she had contacted or would be contacting Gypsy's parole officer in an attempt to influence or change her parole conditions. The defendant has also openly stated that she believes that Gypsy should still be in prison. Now, I want to add something here. A lot of people have strong opinions about whether Gypsy Rose should still be in prison. Okay? A lot of us think she should still be incarcerated. I understand that. Many people feel that way. But that's not what this is about. That's not actually relevant to this particular issue. The justice system has already made its decision. Gypsy Rose went through the legal process. She was charged. She pled guilty. She was sentenced. And she served the time that the court determined was appropriate under the law. So once that process is complete, private individuals like April do not get to step in and try to interfere with the outcome, simply because they disagree with it, and that's all. And with April, it's just coming from a place of jealousy and rage. And I know people use jealousy a lot, but I genuinely believe that with her. With how enraged she gets at the sheer existence of Gypsy Rose, it feels like some displaced jealousy going on right there. Now, whether someone personally believes Gypsy should still be in prison is beside the point. The court made that determination, not April Johns. It's not her place. And April Johns does not have the authority to override, influence, or insert herself into the decisions of the justice system. She may think she does, but she doesn't. Now, Section 54 under causes of action states that defendant herself and by and through her agents, her minions, used her previous contractual relationship with plaintiffs to posit herself as the foremost expert on Gypsy's case. She then uses the fact that she had inside access to create the illusion that she possesses information that no one else possesses, which is untrue. Since November 2019, and to the greatest extent since October 2023, defendant and her agents, her minions, have used their platforms to harass, abuse, and defame plaintiffs, including but not limited to posting plaintiffs' cell phone numbers and protected medical information online. Defendant has resisted all attempts by plaintiffs to resolve this issue. Now, there are April Johns supporters, for some reason, who will say, yeah, but she's getting the truth out. She's getting the truth out there about Gypsy. She's getting the truth out there. Oh, she's our warrior. And again, I want to say this. The method matters. The methodology matters. Her version of getting the truth out there often involves hair pulling, antics, and frankly, unhinged behavior. The behavior of a spoiled child. Meanwhile, you can watch creators, again, like the ladies from Into the Weeds, or Becca Scoops, or Audrey, or any number of other content creators who sit down calmly and explain thoroughly what's going on. They present information, they walk through documents, and they let people evaluate the facts. Yeah, that's how you relay information. in a way that people can actually trust. Are you going to trust a hair pulling maniac? Like, oh, believe me. Or are you going to trust someone who says, so this is the information I have to share with you? Your choice. Viewer's choice. Now, April has said before that the way she behaves is just passion. It's just passion. She's just passionate. But that's not passion. It's not. That's not passion. That's unchecked aggression. That's childish behavior. And it's not appropriate for an environment where the goal is supposed to be reliably communicating information to people. Okay, that's not passion. What she's doing is insane. And now we're getting to the point where people like to say, well, you got all of your information from April. You got all your information from April Johns, and now you're dragging her. That's false. That would be false if you say that. I have never gotten an ounce of information about the Gypsy Rose case from April Johns. Not one single bit of it. I've researched. I've watched multiple other creators. I've watched all the documentaries. I've dug through a lot of documents. Now, if they got their information from April, that's on them, but I did not. I did not. I got information from many other sources, many creators, and all kinds of documents. And from materials that are publicly available online. Not because of April. I've never gotten a single stitch of information that I've shared on my channel from April Johns. So let me kill that noise right now. So let's go ahead and just knock that assumption in the dirt. Now, again, you can read all of the court documents on the website that I named earlier. And if I remember, I will also link it in the description. But if for some reason I don't link it in the description, let me know in the comments and I will correct that. But I wanted to read this section from Count 5, Breach of Contract. I'm not going to read the entire section. I just want to read one part of it. This is section 82. Defendant has embarked upon a course of action in which she has used these materials to portray plaintiffs in a negative light. Defendant has placed these materials in public view and unpaid subscription and paid subscription websites for the purpose of enriching defendant in contradiction of the terms and intended purpose of the agreement. Now, it's very important to hear every word of that, okay? It's very important because I do realize that other content creators have said things that might portray the plaintiffs in a negative light. But those creators did not have a contract with them. They did not have a relationship with them. They are also providing receipts, documents, public records, videos, and other sources. This section is specifically stating that April was receiving money for these materials. And according to the filing, that was in direct violation of the agreement, the signed agreement. That's unethical. It violates the contract. And when medical records are involved, it also raises very serious privacy issues, as I've said before. I also want to add that if you go review the documents on case.net, you will also see Exhibit A, which is the life rights option agreement. And you can read through that whole contract. So you can read through it yourself and, learn all about it. And since we're talking about the court case that was filed in Missouri, before we move on, let me just explain. So the judge dismissed it. It was dismissed. But it wasn't dismissed because it didn't have merit. It was dismissed because of jurisdiction. And they could always file a lawsuit in the proper jurisdiction. It doesn't look like they're going to. I wish they would, but since we're talking about the court case, again, that was filed in Missouri, let's talk about what else happened in the Show Me State. Let's see. While April was there. What happened? April caught criminal charges. Yeah, she caught criminal charges while there. April had to appear in court in Missouri, and she lives in Kentucky. So she got one of her, I guess you can call her colleague, I don't know, Sarah, who actually lives in Illinois, to drive her to the court date in Missouri. From what I understand, April's husband drove her part of the way to meet Sarah. I'm not exactly sure where they met, but Sarah then picked her up and drove her the rest of the way to Missouri for the court appearance. Now, I don't really understand that arrangement. I don't understand it, because if I had to be in court or had something important I had to do, my husband would drop everything to make sure I got where I needed to be. But I guess that's how our relationship works. I guess that's not how it is in every marriage, but I don't know. He would just drop it to be with me. And he would assume this is going to be stressful for her. Let me be with her. But I guess that's not every husband's attitude. So Sarah ended up driving April to Missouri for the court date. And from Sarah's point of view, from speaking to Sarah, it was a pretty miserable trip. And girl, I believe it. I believe it. But fast forward a little bit. Bloop, 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 bloop. They're at the hotel having breakfast before court. And April spots Gypsy Rose's attorney, Mike Stansfield. He's sitting there having breakfast. April then sends Sarah over to try to get a statement from him about the case. And here is the video clip of that interaction.
Hi, good morning, guys. I am here with the media.
No, you're not. You're here with Fancy. You can step away from me, or I will have a police call.
That's fine. We wanted to know if you wanted to make.
You are. You can step away, or I will have a police call.
Well, that's fine. We just wanted to know if you wanted to make a comment.
He said no. You will step away, or I will have a police call, Sarah. I know who you are.
That's fine. I do work. I do work for the. I do work for the media.
He's not a member of the press.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am a member of the press.
Please call, please.
So after this interaction, the claim was made that the man who was with Gypsy Rose's attorney chest bumped Sarah. That was the claim that was made. As a result of that claim, the police were called. They were then encouraged to go to the police department and file a police report about what had happened. Now I'm going to read to you Officer Billy Reynolds' probable cause statement to help clarify what actually happened. Okay. By the way, Billy Reynolds is the name of a local author. He's wonderful. He helped raise me. Okay. But anyway, here we go. And because based on that statement, it appears that the police report that was filed may have been a false police report. And I believe it was, based on April's history. And that is a Class B misdemeanor in the state of Missouri. It's a pretty serious offense. So here is the statement of probable cause. Billy Reynolds, an officer with the Chillicothe Police Department, upon his oath, and I probably don't even have to read this part, but upon his oath and under penalty of perjury, swears as follows. Number 1, my name is Billy Reynolds. I am employed by the Chillicothe Police Department, and I have probable cause to believe that April L. Johns has committed one or more criminal offenses in Chillicothe, Livingston County, Missouri, based upon the following facts. A, on June 5th, 2024, at approximately 09:02 hours, I, Officer B. Reynolds, responded to the 700 block of Webster Street to speak with an individual who wanted to make a statement about being assaulted in the 200 block of West Business 36 Highway. Upon arriving on scene, I spoke with 2 individuals I later identified as Suspect 1 and Suspect 2, who wanted to make a statement about an assault that had occurred earlier in the day. I spoke with Suspect 2, and she advised they were staying at a hotel in the 200 block of West Business 36 Highway, because they were in Chillicothe to document a court hearing. Suspect 2 stated that she observed victim 1 and his associate in the dining area of the hotel and walked over to them and asked them if they had time to make a statement about the hearing. Suspect 2 states that victim 1 yelled and threatened her. Suspect 2 states victim 1 stood up and chest bumped her, causing her to step back. Suspect 2 continued stating that she was so scared after victim 1 chest bumped her that she immediately ran back to where Suspect 1 was. Y'all watched the video. Y'all saw the video, right? After speaking with Suspect 2, I asked Suspect 1 if she observed the incident, and she stated that she did. I asked Suspect 1 if she was willing to make a statement about the incident, and she stated she would. I had Suspect 1 and Suspect 2 meet me back at the Chillicothe Police Department where they filled out a statement. Before Suspect 1 and Suspect 2 gave me a written statement, I advised them if they wrote a false statement, they could be charged as such. Suspect 1 and Suspect 2 acknowledged this by writing their initials under the section that reads what would happen if they made a false statement on the form. C, In Suspect 1's witness statement, she writes that she was in Chillicothe for civil court because she was a respondent in a civil case for defamation and stalking. There's more to it than that, but Suspect 1 writes it was around 8 a.m. when she entered the lobby of the hotel to have breakfast. Suspect 1 writes she and a couple of work associates were sitting down when they observed Victim 1 and his associate enter the lobby. Suspect 1 grabs her phone and Victim 1 tells her to put it away. Suspect 1 takes a few photos so she could have it as evidence if anything happened. Suspect 1 states Suspect 2 walks into the lobby and approaches Victim 1 and his associate, introducing herself as a member of the media. Suspect 1 states Victim 1 and his associate began to yell at her. There was no yelling. Suspect 1 writes Victim 1 forcibly told Suspect 2 to back up and pushed her full contact with his chest. Suspect 2 recorded her contact with Victim 1 and showed me the video. In the video, I see Suspect 2 walk over to Victim 1 and his associate and ask them if they want to make a comment about the court hearing. In the video, Victim 1 and his associate tell Suspect 2 it's not the time or place and ask her to leave them alone. Suspect 2 stands there for a moment before Victim 1 gets up and says something to Suspect 2. It was hard to understand due to the quality of the video. Suspect 2 steps back and Victim 1 walks past her. I do not hear Victim 1 or his associate yell at Suspect 2. I also do not observe Victim 1 forcibly tell Suspect 2 to back up or chest bump her. D. A statement was also collected from Witness 1, who observed the incident at the hotel. In Witness 1's statement, she writes, Suspect 2 walks over to Victim 1 and his associate while they are eating and starts talking and asking them questions. Witness 1 states Victim 1 and his associate politely asked Suspect 2 to leave them alone, and she does not walk away. Witness 1 writes that she sees Victim 1 and his associate get up and walk away, asking her to call the police. E. Video footage was also obtained from the hotel. In the video, I observe Suspect 2 walk up to Victim 1 and his associate and proceed to have a conversation. They continue to have a conversation, and I observe Victim 1 stand up, face Suspect 2 before she steps back, and Victim 1 walks past her and out of frame. Suspect 2 continues to record Victim 1's associate for around 5 seconds before suspect 2 walks back to where suspect 1 is standing. At no time do I see victim 1 or his associate make any threatening gestures toward suspect 2. I do not see victim 1 chest bump suspect 2. I also do not see suspect 2 run back to where suspect 1 is, like she had written and verbally stated to me. The video suspect 1 showed me and the surveillance showed everything that suspect 1 and 2 stated victim 1 did not occur. I believe a criminal summons will not suffice to secure the attendance of the suspect because April Johns has multiple convictions as follows. Bench warrant in Warren County, Kentucky. Offense date July 20th, 2009. Fraud to obtain aid, felony in Riverside, California. Guilty March 22nd, 2000. April Johns continued to victimize victim 1 even after being told by victim 1 to leave him alone. Johns does not reside in the state of Missouri, which does not guarantee a criminal summons will suffice. That doesn't guarantee a criminal summons will suffice. The undersigned swears that, blah, 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 blah. So that was the document. So, yeah, that is the probable cause statement. I won't read the probable cause statement for Sarah because it's pretty much the same thing. This video isn't about Sarah. And it reads pretty much the same, you know. So a Class B misdemeanor for making a false police report in the state of Missouri, although a misdemeanor is still very serious. It can carry a punishment of up to $1,000 fine and up to 6 months in jail or both. Now here I'm going to read April's first correspondence to the judge, and just listen to this professionally orchestrated piece of something. So, all right. So I'm going to read April's first correspondence. It's laughable, but it's to the judge. And just listen to this, okay? It's just professional, just, it's amazing. To the Honorable Judge Leamer, I am writing to inform the court of several pertinent issues regarding case 24 LV-CC00283 filed on June 11th, 2024, in which a hearing is scheduled for July 17th, 2024. As of today, I have not been formally served with any documents related to this case. The address on file with the court was inaccurately given by the prosecuting attorney, Adam Warren, based on our previous civil case address entered by Mike Stanfield. I'm not going to give the address. On the witness statement provided to Officer Reynolds, the correct address was listed as address omitted. I have not resided at, and that's the other address, for 4 years. Mr. Stanfield knew my address at the time of filing because he had previously mailed me a cease and desist. Cease and desist to the correct address. On the morning of June 5th, 2024, I was having breakfast when the opposing party in a civil case appeared with another man in the lobby of the Fairfield Inn. An unidentified male party wearing a bright blue shirt and striped tie yelled out at me from across the dining hall that it was inappropriate for me to hold my phone in my hand and that I needed to put it away. I'm pretty sure that's not how it went, but I proceeded to take 3 or 4 pictures from a great distance from this man in case anything happened. What did she think she's so self-important. Approximately 15 minutes after the 2 men entered the lobby, my reporter, Sarah Anderson, who is employed with our company, employed but ain't never been paid, the Good Wives Network, came down into the lobby. After a brief conversation with me and another independent podcaster, Sarah walked over to the men, introduced herself as a member of the media, and asked Mr. Stanfield if he would care to make a comment on our pending court case. Mr. Stanfield informed Sarah he knew who she was, that she was not a member of the media, and that if she did not walk away, he would call the police. Sarah continued to speak to Mr. Stanfield when she was engaged by the unidentified guy in the bright blue shirt. Pause it. This is where I have to pause for a second. She literally used the word guy in a letter that is supposed to be written to a judge. This guy. That's the level of professionalism we're dealing with here. That is the level of professionalism. It's insane. This is the highly intelligent individual we're talking about. Highly intelligent. Yes, ma'am. This man tried to intimidate Sarah by pushing her with his chest and invading her personal space. This was all caught on a 37-second video that was given to the police when the original report was filed. If you review in between seconds 20 to 24, blue shirt guy gets up from the table, approaches Sarah, and stands to the right of her shoulder, almost directly on top of her. Okay. I'm sorry, I have to pause again. She calls him blue shirt guy. Not the gentleman in the blue shirt. Not the unidentified male. Just blue shirt guy. Blue shirt guy. In a letter to a judge. She sounds like a freaking middle schooler writing a note to the principal. It's ridiculous. This woman is ridiculous. Okay. He proceeded to tell her she needed to have respect and back away. At that moment, instead of going around her to the right, as it appeared he was originally going to do, he shifts his weight from his right foot to the left and drags his body across Sarah's chest. He tells her to back up and move and intimidates her into doing so. She stumbles back, and then you can see his tie. From my position, it looked like he chest bumped her suddenly to move. That was what I stated in my statement. That's what I stated in my statement. He then exited around her to the left. Regardless of physical contact or not, the man is too close to Sarah, and she indicated he moved his chest along hers and pushed her backwards. Mr. Stanfield called the police, and he and his associate came up to the clerk of the court's office. The blue shirt man, or the man wearing the blue shirt maybe, stood in the doorway the entire time, attempting to intimidate the four of us even more. After our court case was dismissed, we met with Officer Reynolds. Upon viewing the video and speaking with me, Sarah, and our two witnesses, Officer Reynolds stated that we should follow him to the station to file a report. He stated that it was a Class 4 assault. So the four of us gave witness statements with what we perceived to happen in the lobby of the hotel and left the station. We had no idea who the man was. The officer stated that he would attempt to catch the man before he left the hotel. We were later informed that the suspected blue shirt man is also the prosecuting attorney on the criminal charges filed, Adam Warren. And I'm going to pause again. I'm going to stop again right here because we need to talk about that. That statement is not correct. It's completely false and completely irresponsible. The man in the blue, and she had all her minions were up in arms like, oh, that's so unethical. I don't want any of those bitches telling anybody what unethical is, because if they think that April Johns is ethical, they have no idea what ethics are. But the man in the blue shirt was not Adam Warren, the prosecuting attorney. It was not. But after this, April went online and began showing pictures of Adam Warren and his wife and claimed that he was the man in the blue shirt. He wasn't. It wasn't him. It wasn't. I just wanted to add that clarification here because it's important, because it's such a false statement. On June 11th, 2024, without ever being questioned or contacted, we were charged with filing a false police statement. Yeah, you were. Neither of the witnesses nor I were spoken to by Officer Reynolds after the event. We reached out several times and he never returned our calls. And she, at one point wanted to know why the two other witnesses with them why charges weren't filed against them too. It's because that's not what their statement said. They didn't lie in their statements. They didn't file a false report. Filing a false report is lying about what happened. I plan to ask the court for a dismissal with prejudice for several reasons. 1, insufficient evidence. 2, the deletion of witnesses and their statements from Officer Reynolds. 3, retaliation from a member of the court. 4, no false police report was filed by myself. Okay. I'm going to pause again. First, the evidence was not insufficient. There is plenty of evidence that says she filed a false police report. The probable cause statement we just read lays out exactly why the officer believed a false report had been made. Second, the claim about the deletion of witnesses and their statements, it doesn't make sense in the way it's being presented. Not in the way it's being presented here. Law enforcement evaluates witness statements based on whether they are relevant to the alleged offense. In this case, the claim of a false report was not, the other witness didn't report anything falsely. They just reported exactly what they saw. They didn't see a crime. Third, the claim of retaliation from a member of the court is also inaccurate because the person that she identified as the blue shirt man was not Adam Warren. It wasn't. The prosecuting attorney, that wasn't him. She misidentified him like an idiot. And I know what you're thinking. No way. April Johns was wrong about something? No, that couldn't be. It is. And I got a tangle. And finally, the statement that no false police report was filed is contradicted by the evidence described in the probable cause statement. So there. Okay, we'll continue with the letter. It's almost over, I promise. Given the circumstances, I respectfully request the following. 1, a full dismissal of all charges. 2, all court costs and attorney fees be reimbursed by the plaintiff. 3, a full investigation into the misappropriate use of power by an official of the court, and blah, blah, blah. And she just goes on, and none of this matters. Okay? And then it's just sincerely the idiot sandwich. I mean, April Johns. So on September 3rd, 2024, she submitted a motion to dismiss that she had written herself, and it's 5 pages long. 5 pages long. Now, in this motion to dismiss, which I'm not going to read in full because it is ridiculous, she makes a number of claims. Let me fix this light. Sorry. In it, she states that her information was leaked to TMZ, that she received DoorDash from Wendy's that she didn't order, so that was stalking, and that she's been harassed and bullied. She also claims that that Sarah Anderson's family contacted her and said that Sarah has filed false police reports in the past, and basically that they're willing to say that in court. And this is also where she makes accusations against Sarah that I'm going to read that section to you because it's just hilarious. So here it is. I have also been, I'm not going to read that. That's about Sarah's family. Okay. We also have evidence that shows Miss Anderson was in direct contact with my stalkers before my June 5th, 2024 hearing that she drove me to. Based on evidence provided to DA Warren, I believe that Miss Anderson attempted to keep me from arriving at the court at 9 a.m. on June 5th, 2024. Yet she was in the hotel eating breakfast at 8 a.m. She has been participating in defaming me before and after the incident that I was only recently made aware of. I would like the DA to press charges against her under Section 565.110, first-degree kidnapping. Section 565-120, second-degree kidnapping. And/or Section 565-130, third-degree kidnapping. Now, I read that exactly how she wrote it. That's exactly how she wrote it. She wrote 565.110 for the first section, and then switched to 565-120 with a dash instead of a period. Because apparently consistency is not a priority when you're writing a legal motion, legal correspondence. And there's another important detail here. April Johns herself states that she had a firearm on her the entire time. She said this in a live, that she had a firearm the entire time during the trip. So according to this motion, she was kidnapped while armed. That might be the first kidnap victim of all time I've ever heard of who was allegedly packing heat the entire time they were being a victim. Crazy, right? On September 4th, 2024, she appeared in court via WebEx without counsel, and the motion to dismiss was taken up and denied. I doubt the judge even read the whole thing. I seriously doubt he read that. They don't have time for that. But there's more to this case. There's always more, right? On October 30th, 2024, a warrant was issued for failure to appear because my light just went out. Because defendant, who is April, did not appear for her court date. So April later submitted another motion that states the following. This is titled Motion to Recall Warrant for Failure to Appear. She's a piece of work. She respectfully requests that this court recall the warrant issued for failure to appear on October 30th, 2024. In support of this motion, the defendant states as follows. Defendant's failure to appear in court on October 30th was due to illness. I have a condition that affects my gastric system. This morning, Eric said, what did she do? Shit herself to sleep. Okay, sorry. This morning at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I was in an episode. I got ready for court, sat down on my couch to rest as it was still early, and fell asleep. I was woken up by my husband at 9:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I immediately contacted the court clerk by phone and was informed by Janet that she was still in court. Jane had messaged me at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time that I needed to appear via WebEx. I emailed her back at 9:54 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I was 15 minutes late to court. Jane told me that it was too late to appear, and I was not informed that the public defender withdrew from my case based on ineligibility that has never been explained to me. She informed me that I could not appear and that a warrant for my arrest had been issued. 2, I have appeared before the court every time that we have been continued. I have not been given any legal counsel by the public defender's office. Despite contacting Mr. Neswick and his supervisor numerous times. Now I am informed I do not qualify for services. She knew she didn't qualify. I am asking to enter a not guilty plea and request an evidentiary hearing so that I may be informed of the state's case against me. I am again requesting that the court force the DA's office to provide me with all of my discovery file beyond the witness statements. I am asking for the surveillance footage from the hotel as I have requested it numerous times. I request that if an evidentiary hearing is not available, that the court schedule a trial by jury at its earliest convenience and enter my plea of not guilty. 5, defendant has no intention to evade court proceedings and is prepared to cooperate fully with the court and attend all rescheduled hearings. I agree to appear in person for the court proceedings scheduled. Oh, well, who's going to drive you? Huh? Who's going to drive you there? Now, she says here that she had no intention of evading court proceedings and that she intended to cooperate fully, right? But after the warrant was issued, she did not pay the $1,000 cash bond that was required. You know, she just let things shut down. So that doesn't exactly sound like cooperation to me, you know. And Sarah has said that April claimed that she fell asleep, but that she believed April knew that if she didn't appear, the case would essentially stop until the bond was paid, meaning it could sit there indefinitely. Now, whether she actually fell asleep or whether she simply chose not to appear, I don't know. But again, this comes back to the same issue that we've been talking about. You know, that we've been talking about throughout this entire video, right? Credibility. Yeah. Now, there have been a number of issues that have followed April Johns, also known as Fancy Macelli, which I said earlier, throughout what she describes as her professional career. For example, she was working on a project called Sins, which was reportedly shut down on September 9th, 2016 for a SAG-AFTRA violation. I wasn't able to find specific information about what the exact violations were, but there are a number of reasons a project can run into problems with SAG. Some of the most common violations include using union actors without the proper SAG contract. Probably did that. Failing to follow union pay requirements. She probably did that. Or working conditions. Or misrepresenting a production's union status. She probably did that too. I'm sure it was on the up and up, right? When something like that happens, SAG can issue a stop work order, which effectively shuts the project down until the issue is resolved. We know she's all about resolving issues, right? Now let's move on to some more information about April Johns' relationship with Gypsy Rose Blanchard. In 2024, Fancy began billing herself as the leading expert on Gypsy Rose. because apparently that's a thing you can just declare. So, yeah. She also changed the story about why the project that she had claimed that she was making about Gypsy Rose, about Gypsy Rose's situation, called By Proxy, was never completed. At one point, she said it was a choice and that her team had never seen the interrogation footage before. I don't believe that. The fact is, the project was never made because she couldn't do it. She couldn't do it. She didn't have the capability to do it. She didn't. She was just trying to cover up the fact that it was her fraudulent behavior and dishonesty that prevented any project from being completed. Watch out for this member of Mensa, you guys. Watch out for her, everybody. I bet neuroscientists are just baffled by the brain on this one. I really do. Really do. Toward the end of her involvement with the Blanchard family, or possibly right at the end of it, but not completely at the end, I'm not 100% clear on that detail, April Johns comes up with a plan to have a woman named Dawn, not me, reach out to Nicholas Godejohn in an attempt to obtain exclusive content from him. And I don't know exactly what her end goal was, but it appeared she was trying to provoke some kind of reaction from him that could potentially make him look bad or harm any chances he might have had in future appeals or other legal proceedings. It seemed like that based on things she said. On April 10th, 2019, Dawn Boker signed a contract to begin this project. Allegedly, an NDA was also signed, and she was to be paid as a contributing producer. However, it has been said by multiple people who have worked with April Johns that she has never actually paid anyone that she has hired. So, yeah. Then on June 29th, 2019, a Twitter account under Dawn's name was created. That account began posting that she was looking to network with true crime podcasters, news outlets, and others, claiming that she had a major story. On September 18th, 2019, Fancy and Dawn appeared on the High Crimes podcast. Then messages between Nick and Dawn were leaked that same day. And those messages were used to tease that there was more on Fancy's paid Patreon. You had to pay to get more information. So she was still grifting. Yeah, she was still trying to make money because she's gross. And she has the nerve to call anybody else gross. Because that's what all this seems to be for her, an opportunity to make money for her. She don't want to pay anybody. She wants to make the money for herself. It really seems like it would be easier to just get a damn job, really. I'm serious. But I'm going to put a few of the emails up on the screen. If you want to pause and read them or screenshot them, go ahead. This is your time to do that. mugshots of Fancy and some of the people she has worked with, including Dawn Boker, this collage looks like it should smell like pee. It does. It looks like it should smell like pee and cheap cigarettes. Just saying. April has also said that after her falling out with Gypsy, she personally sent letters to the correctional facility in an attempt to have Gypsy reprimanded for being in contact with a friend that she was not, I guess, supposed to have contact with. A friend who had been making posts on TikTok on Gypsy's behalf, at that time. April also stated that she wrote letters to the parole board suggesting that Gypsy was not fit for release. Now, I think a lot of us people would agree that Gypsy probably wasn't fit for release, but not the point here. At the same time, that wasn't April's place. She loves to insert herself. And based on the circumstances, it didn't appear to be coming from a place of genuine public concern. It appeared to be coming from a place of maliciousness. She is a malicious woman. Now let's go back in time a little bit. In 2011, April created a website for a business, a gift basket web store, but that never took off. Not even a little bit. So I had to pause because she's a lot. But I was going to read some of her reviews from her different companies she's tried to have. They're just awful. She's lazy. She's late. All she cares about is the food. She drinks from the open bar. She cancels appointments that she scheduled. She just wasn't reliable. She swindled a lot of money out of people. And just things like that. And I'm just not going to read the reviews. I'll either put them in the video or I'll create a Google Doc or something. But you can also read them all on, they're all online, so you can find them all. But yeah, I'm not going to read all those reviews. They're awful, but they're wordy, and some of them are poorly written, and they're just hard to get through. You know what I mean? But it's kind of like she's just had multiple failed projects. Like she's just throwing everything at a wall to see what sticks, or basically to who she can scam out of money, because that's what she does. She scams people. And recently, I don't know, not very recently, but in the last year or so, Katie Joy Paulson of Without a Crystal Ball has crawled up April's ass. But before that, she actually did her part in exposing this nightmare of a woman. I don't think a lot of people really take Katie Joy seriously because she's so problematic too. But that information is still out there as well. April Johns is a con artist who has presented herself as many things over the years: a writer, a director, a producer, and even a true crime expert. She's none of those things. While boasting about credits that cannot be substantiated, things that can't be verified. She has had multiple arrests related to theft and fraud, and multiple lawsuits have been filed against her. The pattern that emerges is one of repeated scams and questionable behavior. She also has a history of volatile and hostile conduct that has created conflict with almost every person she ever has any contact with. April Johns is a deeply problematic individual. She is hostile again, volatile, dishonest, she's a liar, and disrespectful. And she appears particularly threatened by people who speak on Gypsy Rose, especially women. She is especially threatened by women. She is a pick me, and no one's going to pick her. She looks like Quagmire. Giggity. At this point, I think I've provided enough information for you to decide for yourself whether you find April Johns credible or not. You know, it's up to you. Everything I've discussed here is easily verifiable. You can find it all online. Super easy. Bottom line, April Johns is a con artist. She isn't a truth teller. She isn't a groundbreaker. She has a well-documented history of scamming people, and she will continue to do this as long as she is allowed to get away with it. She will. So look, no one is perfect, okay? No one is perfect. We're all flawed. There's a difference. There is a difference between, for example, missing a deadline or accidentally writing a bad check when you thought you had enough money in the bank to cover it, and outright defrauding people. You know what I'm saying? Those are not the same thing. But just know that there are better, more reliable, more respectable, and credible people reporting on the Gypsy Rose case, raising awareness. People who are doing it ethically and controlled. And this person is not one of them. But it looks like I'm late for my kidnapping, so I better run. But thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to everyone later. Bye.